What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Bro History. It's Henry Zamota and my good friend Danny Abdeljabbar. What's up, man? How are you?
Chilling, man, as per usual. How about yourself?
I'm doing okay. All this like divisiveness is really starting to get to me in this election, man.
Oh,
I
really?
don't know if you've been feeling the same way. Um, it's been kind of tough over the past couple of days. Um, so my family, I think I've told everyone that I come from a pretty conservative family, and we actually found out my grandmother voted for Biden, which really like angered a lot of people in my family. They were like really shocked that my grandma voted for Biden.
What state is she live in?
And in Virginia,
And that went to Biden too.
and so my family got. I can't believe they did this, but they were so upset that they're refusing to visit her tombstone anymore.
Oh man, that's a
So
good
they
one.
took all the flowers away from the tombstone because she voted for Biden.
You got me there.
Did
You
I
got
really
me.
get you
Yeah,
on
you
that?
really did. Yeah, yeah. I thought this was a
Um,
legitimate story. Uh,
I hope I really wanted to drag you in.
well, you did a good
No,
job.
my grandmother has passed away, but I can tell you for a fact she wouldn't have voted for Biden. Um, she but yeah, this has been. I'm not actually that distraught. I thought that was.
It was just a good lead-in. You fucking
It was a good
bastard.
lead-in.
You bastard.
But yeah, this is pretty crazy since we last spoke. I feel like so much has happened, and
And
uh,
yet so little, right?
yet so little. So there is an election going on, and by the time we're done with this podcast, everything that we say is most likely going to be moot and old news. But
Yep.
as we are recording this, it's 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and
On
it
Thursday,
looks like
November
I
5th.
guess I guess can you just tell us where we are in this election right now, real
Yeah.
quick? Because I got to sneeze.
Yep, sure. So actually, I'll go ahead and share the screen so that everybody can see. And hopefully, at this juncture, we don't actually have a bunch of those uh, issues that we had last time, um, where we were hearing echoing and things like that. So hopefully, that's not a problem this time around.
Yeah, we apologize for last episode. I know there was some echoing at some points. We kind of had some. I don't know what happened, but this time Danny says it won't happen, so I'm trusting you.
Yeah, we had way too many technical issues last time around. We lost audio, we lost internet, we lost a bunch of things. We had to start over. It was nuts. Anyway, election time. As of 10 p.m. Thursday, November 5th, we are at 264 votes for electoral votes for Joe Biden and 214 for Donald Trump. The source that I'm using here for those that are listening and not watching is the Associated Press. It's just Google election results. It literally pops up right in the front. It's also mirrored with the stuff that you're going to see on Fox News. But I will point out that MSNBC and CNN are a bit more conservative with the calling of states. Specifically, Arizona has not been called in favor of Biden, as it has been in both Fox News and the Associated Press. So that's where we stand right now. What do you want to know, Henry?
So I want to know where we are with because right now, as we're recording it, it's kind of like we're expecting the votes to shift from Georgia and Pennsylvania from Trump to Biden. I guess really within the next couple of vote dumps, right?
Yeah, I heard that they're going to be doing a vote dump in Georgia. I thought it was going to be at 9 p.m. We're already blown way past that. But then they're going to do another one tomorrow morning. So I don't think we're going to be done completely. But if this next vote dump is substantial enough, it could swing in the other direction. Just keep in mind, we're at like 2,000, 2,500 or so vote difference. It's 2.4447 million to 2.445 million, right? Um, that's very, very close. It's currently leaning in favor of Donald Trump, but from everything that I'm reading and seeing, the majority of the votes that still need to be counted are in fact mail-in ballots, and they are coming from the counties surrounding Atlanta and Macon, and a few from Savannah as well.
And I guess in other news right now, as a Republican win, the Republicans have taken 10 houses in the Senate, in the House, or 10. They've taken 10 seats in the House, and it looks like it's very likely that they're going to be retaining their Senate lead. I think they only had one seat flip in Colorado with John Hickenlooper, who was actually running for president.
And then they convinced him to run for Senate.
And then they convinced him to run for Senate. But I was surprised. Hickenlooper was actually I was looking at his policy. He didn't really seem too much like a Democrat. Like he seemed almost like I don't want to say a libertarian, but the guy did not have like status quo. He wasn't like a Democrat from California. He's definitely more of a free market type Democrat.
He's a dino.
A dino. So I guess he's the type of guy who it definitely won't be joining the progressive wing of the Democratic Party.
You mean he's not going to be
like
the fourth member of the squad? Or fifth?
He will not be the fourth member of the squad. I think Hickenlooper was a Republican at one point. I may be wrong about that. For some reason, I think he was a Republican.
I mean, everybody was a Republican at one point,
Or maybe he was a libertarian at one point. I think he has kind of a political, a long story. However, he's more of he'll be more of a conservative guy. I remember him speaking against Medicaid for all and a lot of like those policies in the Green New Deal during the debate. So even the seat they did get there isn't going to be like a super progressive Democrat. So all in all, there's definitely a victory for, at the very least, the Republican politicians who gained seats and most likely for future seats upcoming election, assuming that Trump loses. Because usually that's just the way that these midterm elections swing. The opposite party will typically get the vote, the one who's not the president. So for those politicians, it probably seems good, at least for the next couple of years.
So we're looking at those totals right now, just to give everybody a heads up. It's 208 called for the Democratic Party and 193 called for the Republican Party. There's a 218 needed for a majority. I think what we're seeing is 5 losses from the Democratic Party and 6 gains, and 1 loss from other parties, so independent parties.
And what's interesting about this is that Bank of America released a white paper about.
I've got the white paper right here, Henry.
No, it was like from one of their lead economists. They released a white paper on the different outcomes of the presidential election and what they saw as the best markets, the best stock market. So not the best overall economy. They were talking about what they saw would be best for the stock market. And they had their 4 scenarios, which was a blue executive, Joe Biden president, a Democrat-led Senate, which would be surprisingly the best for the stock market, and then mix and match the other scenarios like Biden presidency, a Republican Senate, and then a Trump presidency and a Republican Senate, and then the Trump presidency and a Democratic Senate.
What was the best and worst case scenarios?
So the best scenario for them was a Biden presidency and a Democrat-led Senate. The worst case scenario is what's most likely going to happen: a Biden presidency and a Republican-led Senate.
Yep, that sounds about right.
And can you imagine why they came up with that? Like, what was their reasoning for that?
I mean, without a doubt. First of all, McConnell won his re-election bid against McGrath, and he actually beat her pretty badly too, despite the fact that the polls were showing otherwise beforehand. By the way, can we just agree to stop caring about polls forever, because it's clearly bullshit? Anyway, moving on. Yeah, McConnell's still going to be the Senate majority leader, and if we're looking at Senate here, we've got 46 seats called for Democrats, 48 seats called for Republicans, 51 needed for a majority, and other parties have 2 seats. So, there's not a ton left. As you pointed out, Hickenlooper was a gain, and the Republicans lost one there, but everything else is pretty much going to fall the same way that it did. They're still going to have a majority, just a thinner majority.
Why do you think that Bank of America came up? Why was their analysis that a Biden presidency with a Democrat-led Senate be the best case scenario for the stock market, and then
because
the
of
opposite
bailouts.
be the worst?
Because of bailouts.
Because of bailouts.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Because they know is that, and this is what everyone knows at this point, that corporate earnings don't mean shit anymore for the stock market,
right?
At least in this economy. Mm-hmm. And it's all about what's coming from whatever stimulus is going to happen. And they know that the biggest stimulus package is going to come from a Biden presidency and a Democrat-led Senate, because they'll work together and it'll approve something huge.
$10 trillion.
Republicans usually, if there's a Republican in office, then they're fine with spending money. But when they're the opposition, when they're standing up against big spending, right, that's when they're forced to be like, oh, we're the party of fiscal responsibility. We can't approve the stimulus bill.
Right.
So they know that, and everyone knows that.
Right.
So that was the worst case scenario. So I thought that was really funny that it let the election outcome. Most likely, I guess there's still a chance that Trump could win. I don't know what the betting odds right now are. I'm sure they're pretty low. But I thought it was pretty hilarious that they landed on that spectrum. Now, I want to ask you I don't know how much insight we're going to be providing to people right now on the election, because I'm sure people are glued to everything that's happening. But I want to get your impact, because I've been kind of in right-wing media land.
Mm-hmm. In the bubble.
So I've been hearing a lot of cases from like Tucker Carlson and Tim Pool. I listened to the Ben Shapiro's podcast. I listened to a lot of right-wing media over the past couple of days. So I want to hear what were you shocked from this election outcome? Like, what's your general take?
Not even a little bit shocked. This is probably exactly what I expected to happen.
And I want to grant, you were saying this is what exactly, I want to give you credit, because you said that you thought it was going to be really close and it was going to end up in the courts.
Right. I did say that.
You did say this. I don't remember if it was on the podcast or if you said it to me in private, but I do remember you saying that I think it's going to be really a lot closer than people think, and that it's going to end up going to the Supreme Court. But I believe you said you thought Trump would win in the courts.
He's probably going to win in the court. Is
really
what I'm saying.
You still think that?
Yeah, kind of. We'll see. This really hinges on whether or not Biden can pull off a win and hold Arizona, and also just basically hold Arizona and either gain Nevada. That would make him win immediately, and then the courts are moot. But there's no way that Trump is going to win every single open state. Like, he's not going to win all of them. So my opinion is that he'll win many of them, not all of them. It'll be close enough where, especially in the states that they win, like Georgia, where we have currently like a 2,500 vote margin, where the laws are gonna allow for either an immediate recount or they're gonna be lawsuits. And Trump has been saying this since before the election even started. He said, the mail-in ballots are gonna be crazy. They're gonna find Biden votes everywhere. It's gonna be ridiculous, and we're gonna sue him. I wasn't surprised by any of this. This is what I'm surprised about, I think, is people's reaction to how close it is. So I haven't been living in liberal land. I actually spent a lot of time bouncing between all of the major networks, and then today I was reading OAN just to see what they were saying, and I was like reading Breitbart, and then on top of that I was like in fucking The Hill and Snopes and shit like that, like just like everywhere. I wanted to like see what everyone's saying, and everyone's really freaking out about like why isn't Biden having a landslide, or like why hasn't Trump completely, eviscerated Biden. I'm not surprised by this. I think nobody was listening to each other this whole time. Everyone forgot how divided we are, and this is exactly what I thought was going to happen. That's all I got to say.
On a positive note, there's really no violence going on right now.
No, there isn't.
There's protests in New York right now. In Washington Square Park, there's some videos. My Citizens app has been going off. I'm sure I think there's some other protests around the country, but I mean, everyone was saying they're going to get into there's going to be a constitutional crisis, and the left and the right wing are going to go to war with each other on the streets.
Yeah, no.
That's not going to happen.
No.
People aren't going to. People are. The U.S. is violent in some regards, as far as like shootings and stuff. It's more violent than most countries in Asia, along with Europe. I think South America is probably a little bit more violent than the U.S. if you go into like Brazil or something like that. But I guess other countries in South America probably don't have the same violent crime statistics as we do. However, people aren't murderous. Like people are struggling in this country, but nobody's standard of living is so low where they're so desperate to like win an election for their side to be granted some like special privilege that they need to, or it's like a do or die situation. So people aren't going to be the average Trump supporter and the average Biden supporter. Neither of them are going to be willing to engage in the trenches into some type of civil war. I think that whole narrative that was going on over the past, I don't know, like it's been going on. This narrative's been going on for a long time. That eventually the left wing and the right wing are going to engage in some type of war. That's not going to fucking happen.
No, and
man.
You know what else isn't going to happen? A mass exodus from this country. How many people did you remember after 2016 saying, "Oh, I'm moving to Canada because Trump is president now," right? How many people actually moved to Canada? Think about it. Maybe some, but like not even a statistically significant number of people. And this time around, I'm actually hearing this from the right now. I'm like literally, I was reading an article on OAN and then immediately scroll down to the comment section because I just have to read what these people are saying. And there was this one person like, I'm really having some trouble here because I really don't want to live in a Biden-led U.S., but I can't think of another country that even comes close to the United States. So it's like people having an existential crisis that are like hyper patriotic, but at the same time cannot stand Biden enough to feel like they have to say that they want to leave, and that's not going to happen either.
I imagine a lot of people are really emotional right now about the election. Before you start having if you're having a hard time right now, like I don't blame you. Like these election, all the political buildup of the past 4 years is kind of coming out right now. So I don't blame you if you're having a hard time.
Yeah.
But my advice is that don't let your mental health be dependent on whatever bozos are in the executive office. Like it's not really worth it. Like I would say this to liberals when Trump won, and I would say this to Republicans if Biden won. Like, don't let your mental health suffer because you lost the election. Now, what I do see the problem is that whatever happens, well, first of all, the voting right now is a complete shit show. And listen, man, I'm not going to say anything as far as like alleged. I'm not going to say like, oh, like it's a bunch of fraud going on. I really don't know. Like I don't know. I've seen videos of. I've seen some weird videos as far as like boarding up voting sites, and then I've seen some videos of people of burning what they claim to be our Trump ballots. I honestly don't know the full extent or what the extent is of how they affected the election. So I don't want to go there until there's like in court and like I see legal cases before I start saying stuff like that.
Right.
Um, but I do think that what happened, the way the vote happened, because we went to bed on Tuesday, a lot of Trump supporters probably went to bed pretty happy. I think he was favored at 80% to win the to be reelected at one point, and then they woke up to it reversed because Wisconsin had flipped. I think at around 4 in the morning on Wednesday morning, and I guess the way that the votes were tallied, they were basically all Biden votes, and seeing that lead just kind of evaporate overnight when you were confident that you're winning the state, obviously is going to make you question what the fuck just happened. And just as far as the fact that we're still voting and there's so much there's still voting going on. Well, not voting going on. There's still counting going on, and the election was 2 days ago. Makes everyone rightfully, because I'm sure there's a large margin of error right now. I'm sure. I don't blame people for questioning the margin of error and also questioning the ethics that have probably been practiced, knowing that we are in a I'll just flat out say it. The Democrats, they have a history of screwing over Bernie Sanders, so I'm sure as I would bet that they'd be more than willing to I guess engage in some unethical vote counting in an election against Donald Trump as well. I don't know any of this. I don't know if any of this is true. I'm still waiting for evidence, but I just saying I don't blame people for, I guess, losing confidence in our vote, in our electoral system.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame people for feeling that way, but I think the reason why they feel that way is just misinformation. I don't think it's necessarily like a visceral thing, because as you described it, I mean, I watched pretty much all day on election day, and I spent the majority of my time watching Fox News, believe it or not. And if we're calling a spade, more Trump voters are watching Fox News than say MSNBC for sure. And pretty much all day, Biden was ahead. I think most of the pundits, the talking heads on Fox for that day were, still very confident and saying, well, the big states that we know that will win haven't been counted, like Florida and so on and so forth, right? And Texas, Texas was blue for a period of time, and they were still talking about it like, it's fine. Texas is going to go red, which it did. I don't think, from my experience, that I didn't go to sleep thinking, oh man, Trump is ahead and Biden is losing, and oh man, I'm so sad about that. I went to bed seeing that Biden was ahead, and then at 2:30 in the morning, Trump was telling people to stop counting the vote. And then in the morning, some bigger states like Wisconsin dropped. And then that lead that Biden had expanded considerably. And I think it's important to note how and why that lead expanded. It's because, part of the reason why I'm not surprised, Trump kept telling his people to go vote in person. Go vote in person, go vote in person. Coronavirus shouldn't stop you from going to vote in person. That's what he was telling everybody. Don't be afraid of the disease. Just go vote. And that's what they did. By and large, I think Trump voters voted in person across almost every single state. And what did the Biden camp tell their people? They said, vote, send in, your mail-in ballots. Like, here's the times that you have to do it. Here, if you live in a state where you have to drop them off, here are the places where you got to drop them off. But do it. And a lot of people for Biden picked up the mail-in ballots. And now, depending on the state, they have different rules on when they count those votes. And in many of these swing states, they count the in-person votes first, like Pennsylvania, like Wisconsin, like Georgia. In all of these places that it's super close, or was super close, all of the Trump voters got in their vote on the day of, and they got their little lead, and they were like, yeah, we got this, we won. And then they became surprised that Biden caught all these votes, and they're like, wait, that's not fair. That's not real. That's not what it was at the end of the night after the polls closed. How could this be? Well, it's normal. Obviously, if this is what each camp told their people to do, and this election happens to be the biggest turnout in U.S. presidential history, more than 159 million ballots cast, and we're still counting them. And that's why it takes so fucking long. Now, I definitely agree with you. There's probably some margin of error for sure. Why? Because there's so much pressure on all these states that are still counting to count faster. There was a point where I got some misinformation that Pennsylvania had decided to go to bed at 10:30, and they were like, no, we're good. We're going to pick up counting in the morning. And everyone flipped out. And then I think it was like the state attorney general had to come on TV and say, like, no, we're still counting. We're just changing the people who are counting. I think the reason why people are so surprised at how it is because they're not considering how people were told to vote. And they're so surprised at how many people voted. I pointed out that Texas was almost going blue in the early phases, and everybody was surprised, like, how is Texas getting so many blue votes? Well, it's because mail-in ballots were a thing, and they were allowing them to do that.
I'm curious to see so Trump says that they have evidence that there's been voter fraud, and I guess they're talking about two cases. Mm-hmm. I guess specifically they're talking about Nevada and they're talking about Pennsylvania.
Right.
And I think in Nevada, what they're saying right now is that they have evidence that there has been deceased
dead people voting.
There have been dead people, like my grandmother voting. Like the veterans of World War I voting. That payback. You know, when Trump said that they were losers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Allegedly,
these guys are losers.
These are losers.
Right.
But these are losers.
Right.
Yeah. These World War I veterans, these dead World War I veterans are losers. Apparently, that's their payback
mm-hmm.
to make them lose the election. And then the other accusation is that in Pennsylvania, there were votes coming in stamped November 4th, and that they were counting. Yeah, they were post ballots. So I think those are the two accusations. And I think they were saying that was in Michigan as well. Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see all this if it's what their evidence is.
Me too. Honestly, me too. Like just because at the moment Biden happens to be winning, I'm not against the idea that we should pay attention to the vote and make sure that everything is legit. Like if it's true that votes that are coming into Pennsylvania were postmarked for November 4th and they're still counting them, no, that's not allowed, right? But that doesn't mean we should stop counting votes just because we think that might be the case. Just check.
Well, there has to be a very, I guess, clear and sober explanation about this jump, I guess, in the lead in a lot of these swing states for Biden, because otherwise, and I think this is going to happen anyway. I think the same thing that happened to Trump is going to happen to Biden. And when I say Trump, when he won in 2016, people, well, I don't think the same exact thing is going to happen, but I think a large part of the population is going to see him as illegitimate. I think that many Trump voters, many Republicans will look at Joe Biden as an illegitimate president.
Sure.
And he's going to have to deal with a legitimacy problem.
Yeah.
Throughout his 4 years as president.
And it'll only be 4 years. I'm calling it now.
Oh, yeah. Listen, man. So my honest take is that I don't think if you're I don't think you want to be the party in
Nope.
power right now in the
Nope.
executive office this next 4 years.
No, you do not. No. No.
What you're dealing with probably this upcoming March, because all the bankruptcies are being delayed right now, at least for the small businesses. All these court cases are going to start being settled around March
Evictions
next
are
year.
coming up.
Those evictions, and when a lot of the aftermath of the lockdown start catching up. So bankruptcies, high unemployment, people losing jobs, evictions, all these things that
All this in the
are
backdrop
that needs court proceed, that requires a litigation process to proceed, that can't move forward, are going to happen next year.
And this is all this plus a global pandemic.
All this
that
plus,
hasn't finished yet, right? Like that's still a thing.
All this plus, unless coronavirus disappears right after
magically after Joe Biden becomes president. Yeah, sure.
Unless, I beat Corona.
Let's go back to the voter fraud thing, because I did do a little bit of research on this. So I agree with you, Henry. I think we need a sober explanation. I think the sober explanation is pretty obvious to me. I think it's just Biden voters voted by mail in these states like Pennsylvania. They count the in-person first and then the mail-in ballot first. And because his people voted majority by mail, that's why it looks like he's getting this giant lead after the fact. And in the counties where we're still counting things, like Philadelphia County, Delaware County, Allegheny County, those are all democratically leaning counties. And they also happen to have the largest proportion of the population. And because there's so many damn votes to count, and they're not doing it by those voting machines, they have to do it by hand. And the process to do this shit is fucking hard, right? You get a mail-in ballot, it comes in I did a mail-in ballot this year. It comes with an outside thing with a little scanny guy, and then you got to open that one up. And first thing they do is they check to make sure that you are in fact on the voting roll. And if you're on the voting roll, then they can proceed. And then in many states, I believe Pennsylvania is the same, they check your signature against the signature that they have in their book. And I read that something like 1 in 5 of these things get thrown out just immediately because the signature doesn't match, right? So, there's questions there about, I almost never sign my signature the same way twice, so my vote probably didn't count. So 1 in 5 of them just pretty much get thrown away because they can't verify the signature. And then after that, once they've verified that you're actually real and you're on the voting roll and your signature matches, then they can open it up and then they can count it. And then they got to put it in a new sealed envelope to say, hey, I've counted this one. It goes for Trump or it goes for Biden. And then they repeat this process. But we have to do this on the order of magnitude of millions of ballots across the country, right? Millions and millions. So of course it's going to take a long time. So I think that's the sober approach to it. But huge but, if these votes are in fact postmarked after the election, I don't think there's a single state that's allowing that by law, that should be allowing that by law. I think that's against the rules for every state's a board of elections. And if they're doing that, that's bad, and I'm 100% in favor of investigating that.
Yeah, I think that's what they are going to. I don't know. Do you know who James O'Keefe is from Project Veritas? Veritas. Yeah. You know who that is?
Project Veritas. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They have. This is what they have, and I know people are going to be left-wing people are going to start rolling their eyes because, they do.
Let's hear it.
They
Let's
do
hear what
target.
They
do target. They have videos. They have whistleblowers calling them up saying that they're marking boxes filled that are November 4th, date, and they're dating them as November 3rd. Mm-hmm. So that's what they're saying. Then whistleblowers are calling them up, and this is taking place in Pennsylvania. I don't know if Trump is this is the evidence that Trump is using, what the Trump legal team is using.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to hear. So, it sounds like you think that there's a pretty logical explanation for the vote swing. Why do you think that Trump will end up winning in court then?
Well, because he just packed the courts with a bunch of conservatives.
Do you think they're going to be so blatantly partisan? I don't think. I don't like. Do you even think it will get to the Supreme Court?
Well, I mean, it was extremely partisan for Bush v. Gore. And I'm not making a judgment on Amy Coney Barrett. So like for those folks on the right that want to just jump down my throat about it, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that there's historical precedent that the courts aren't exactly like independent, and they do have a political leaning. And I think Antonin Scalia said for Bush v. Gore, and I'm paraphrasing here, he said that they had to stop doing the voting counts because it would cause irreparable harm. And the dissenting opinion was counting all legally cast ballots does not constitute harm, or does not constitute irreparable harm. And that's just the way that it was. And the Bush ended up winning that legal battle because there were more conservative judges than there were liberal ones. And I think that was the legal argument, that continuously counting legally cast ballots could cause irreparable harm to the legitimacy of the incumbent president. I just read it like literally before the show started. So, I'm not making a judgment on any particular current person, but I can tell you that Clarence Thomas is still there. So it's possible. They've I think Mitch McConnell was very clear when he put it to a vote to push through Amy Coney Barrett before the election. He said very clearly, if we have to deliberate on, the election, we want to make sure we have conservative judges on the bench. He said it himself. Like, I don't know. I'm not making a judgment that's like wild and crazy. They're saying it themselves.
If that happens, that will make American liberals' heads explode.
Yeah.
Heads exploding across this country.
I mean, honestly, it should make any people's heads explode. We shouldn't want like partisans on the court. We shouldn't. That shouldn't be the way that this gets litigated. Like I'm trying to be fair here, and I'm trying to say, like, if there's legitimate reasons where there's voter fraud, we should investigate that. And I don't care if it benefits Trump or if it benefits Biden, because this is our democracy. Like we're not fucking what's the dude in Belarus? What was the guy's name again?
Lukashenko?
Yeah, we're not. This isn't Lukashenko in Belarus. Like, we're not winning by 80%. Which brings me to my next point, which is why I think that all of these votes are legitimate, or at least the ridiculous overwhelming votes are legitimate, is because if you wanted to steal an election, you would do it like the people in Belarus, or maybe a little less obvious, but you wouldn't say stuff the ballot with 1,000 votes. You'd stuff it with 20,000 votes. Or 50,000 votes, some ridiculous margin to put you well above. Because right now, these margins are razor thin, razor thin. Like in as we pointed out in Georgia right now, it's 2,500 votes, right? So, you wouldn't risk like going to jail forever by stuffing the ballots by like 1,000 votes or something like that. Like, you're gonna give the person that you intend to cheat for a comfortable lead. But because the votes are so damn close in all these states, I actually think this is legitimate. I think it's real. I think that's the actual way that people voted.
Well, you could be right. Trump did encourage people to send in their ballots. Maybe that bit him. I'm not send it. He encouraged his base not to trust mail-in ballots.
Exactly, and to go in person and do it.
To go in person. So ironically, that could be what is biting him in the ass right now.
If everybody mail-in balloted, if everyone sent in a mail-in ballot and we just said no in person, right? First of all, we wouldn't even be close to knowing who's winning right now, because again, I just described the process by which you have to count these votes, and it's arduous, and there's not nearly enough people to do it. So that's one. We wouldn't even be close to knowing. And two, then we wouldn't see such violent swings, right? From red to blue or blue to red, or et cetera, right? Because each state has a different rule on which votes do they count first. Is it the in-person ones or is it the mail-in ballot ones? And I want to also point out, and this is just a very, very small majority, but it might actually make a difference in Georgia. We do have overseas ballots. People who are serving in the military overseas who have sent in their ballots, and it takes longer for it to get from there to here, that are still impending, even in Georgia. So are we saying we don't want our military members' votes to count? We're just going to have to wait. Just wait. Let them count it all. And as soon as they're done counting, then we can take a look at the evidence and we can see, all right, was there voter fraud? Was there, mail ballot stuffing? Did people, say that these were postmarked in the wrong day? Like what? I'm totally down for it. But just keep in mind, if they do that, then that also elongates when we get to know when the president is. And everybody wants an answer now, right? We're in Twitter world, right? This is the universe that we live in. We want instant gratification, and we're not getting it now, and it's really getting under people's skin,
I know that is the issue. People just want, I want to know if I need to care about politics anymore for this year.
Yeah,
I think that it's like how invested do I want to get?
Right. People want to stop watching Fox News all day, every day for the next couple days. They're sick of it.
I know. It is, honestly, I'm getting a political hangover. We were talking before we started the show. I hope we need to stop talking about this election.
Yeah.
Because I'm getting tired of talking about this election, even though it's it just calls for attention. It's hard to do other stuff right now. It's hard to do an episode on World War I or the Civil War when
Civil War might be a good one to bring up again.
Yeah, the Civil War might be a good one to bring up again, but it's hard to do a podcast on the Civil War right now when it's just there's just so much shit being thrown in your face right now with the election. So we're going to try to get back into our normal routine of talking about history and foreign policy and stuff like that. But I'm surprised so one of the big themes of this election is that, if Trump wins or loses, he still had the largest voter turnout out of any Republican president of all time.
But by and large, yeah.
So
did Biden. Biden beat Obama's voter turnout.
Yeah.
This is just the most voting period. It's awesome.
What do you think that was? Why do you think that was so?
At least I can't really speak for the Trump campaign, but for the Biden side, I can say the reason why there were so many more votes was, one, probably there's some people that were liberal that didn't vote for Hillary Clinton that were probably upset with the fact that Trump won, and that really ratcheted up the base. But honestly, I think it's just mail-in ballots. It makes it fucking really easy to vote. And it should be extremely easy to vote. This is this should be our right. We have a right to vote. So because it's so easy, more people do it. Tell me all I got to do is fill out a form and toss it in a mailbox? Cool. I can do that. I can do that whenever I want. Instead of having to stand online for 4 hours and use a shitty Scantron system. Yeah, that sounds really appealing. And I imagine the same could be true for Trump voters too. But I also think that Trump just did a really good job, honestly, rallying his side and getting the vote out, especially in places like Texas, where I thought for a minute it was going to go blue, and then they won solidly, without question.
Trump the last couple of days of the campaign, oh my God, this guy was doing 5 rallies a day.
I think he did a very, very good job.
That guy, if you love or hate Trump,
right,
you got to respect his stamina. He's 73 or 74 years old, and he's out there doing rally after rally after rally. I mean, I'm tired after doing a podcast in front of just you
and sitting in a chair.
And sitting in a chair. Him just going from city to city doing these crazy rock star rallies, man.
In fairness, I'm not totally convinced that he's not doing drugs. Adderall and shit. I'm pretty sure
I
he's
mean,
abusing stimulants, but
that's
like even still,
that's the rumor, but even still, like
even still,
it doesn't turn you 30 years younger.
it'll
You
catch you.
know,
It'll catch up to you. Yeah,
it'll give you a nice boost for maybe a couple hours, but it's not gonna like this is a week period where he's doing stuff like this. So yeah, I think that definitely had to do. But honestly, I think we're missing something because so the whole reason why Trump got elected in the first place, it was a middle finger to the establishment,
sure, I could agree with
and
that. Mm-hmm.
I think that it was again a middle finger to the establishment. His vote, like his base, hates the nexus. What they see is the nexus between the corporate press, big tech, and the DNC, and Wall Street. They hate that power nexus, so they'll vote for any middle finger who they perceive to be an outsider of that complex, or at the very least, be a I don't want to say a bulwark, but at least make a mockery out of that nexus. Are you hearing what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
they're voting
and
him.
I'm agreeing with what you're saying actually.
So, and I include myself in that category. I I hate the corporate press. If you listen to this podcast, usually
No
it's
surprise.
there's really no love for the corporate press or big tech or the DNC or even, like any of those building blocks. So I completely understand the wanting to give a middle finger to that movement. Now, you don't think that the vote was more it was more about just having voter accessibility rather than wanting to vote Trump out of office?
And I think it's a combination of the two, but I don't think, I'm going to be honest, especially after 2016, if everybody had to go in and vote and there was not like a widespread availability to vote by mail in many states, I'm not fully confident that liberals are fucking, like, I think a lot of liberals just virtue signal, right? They're just like, they'll post a tweet with thoughts and prayers and shit, but that's about all you get, you know? And I think this was evidenced in the 2016 election when, you know, I mean, Hillary Clinton won the popular vote, but, you know, Donald Trump won the Electoral College, and in some states by razor thin margins, you know?
So what do you see as so there's like a big discrepancy though, because it looks like they're gonna win at least, you know, before any legal proceeding they're
Right.
gonna get to 270.
Yeah, I think so.
Now, why do you think there's a big discrepancy in the House seats and governor seats as well, and state Senate seats? Like all the state Senate seats, like everything else went red. So it was
Yeah.
kind of a red wave meets, but they lost Trump.
Yeah,
That's
I
kind
mean,
of what happened.
it honestly, it could be that there are people
Like, were they
who,
just not voting down ballot? Like,
no,
I'm not.
quite the opposite. They're splitting their tickets. You know, I think at least some plurality of people, some plurality of Republicans probably didn't vote for Trump, but then voted for Republicans in the House and in the Senate. Right? Maybe they were just turned off by his mechanics. Because, like, I agree with your sentiments in the sense that, like, a lot of people, when they voted for Trump in the first place, this was a protest vote against the establishment, right? But in my opinion, you know, while I agree with that sentiment, I disagree with the choice, right? The Trump himself is like the worst possible choice, in my opinion, if you want, for going against the establishment, because I think he just ended up being an establishment figure himself. I digress, though. I think that probably there's some disillusioned Republicans who ended up voting for Biden, but that, you know, they wanted to vote their conscience and they wanted to vote their policy, and they understood that, you know, the real decision making, the real policy making happens in Congress, specifically in the Senate, in the upper house.
So people who voted for Biden wanted to put a check on him at the same time, so they voted for Biden, and then they said, "All right, well, at least I'm going to put a Republican
Right.
in Congress so I can have them check them." That what do you think that
Yeah,
is? Do you think
that's my
that
theory. Yeah.
that's what I was thinking as well? But I was just wondering like how big that vote is because most people just vote
Yeah, they're
down
just like
ballot,
R,
Republican,
bam, bam, bam,
Republican,
bam,
or
bam, D. Mm-hmm.
or I mean that's what
Right
I
down the
do.
way. Yeah.
I'll do um, R down. But I mean that's interesting that you think that as well. I think a lot of boomers probably did that who are scared about coronavirus,
Yeah, maybe.
who are been upset with Trump over Corona.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they also are they also have 401ks, so they don't want the stock market to drop. Ironically, the scenario that we're probably going to go into is the worst for it's going to be the worst for the stock,
Yeah.
the worst possible scenario for
Well,
the
they
stock
probably
market.
didn't read the white paper. That's all. You know, they didn't
I
read the
mean,
white
well,
paper.
because a lot of people don't. I don't think people. A lot of people don't realize how much like these stimulus, these stock. Here's what my take was before the election, and I thought that Biden was going to win prior to the election. I was honestly surprised. I'm not surprised it was so close, but I thought that he was going to lose the Rust Belt for the same reasons why he won the Rust Belt. So Wisconsin and I mean he might get Wisconsin
Michigan.
during the recount, but Michigan.
And maybe Pennsylvania.
What I thought the reason why, because a lot of those areas are poor, man, and they feel underrepresented, so they voted for Trump as kind of they voted for Trump because things were bad for them during the Obama administration, and what Trump was saying, he was rightfully criticizing a lot of the Obama economic numbers. A lot of the economic numbers that Obama was gloating about during the recovery, they were pretty hollow. But then, and Trump was rightfully criticizing them. But then he went and he did the exact same thing Obama was doing. Like he was using the exact same fluff numbers and saying, "Oh, look, I'm so great for the economy. Like I did all these great
The Dow
things."
is up 1,000 points.
Yeah,
today,
the
so,
Dow,
like,
and then he started
great.
using the stock market as basically his main benchmark
Which I think
for
is honestly a mistake
success.
made by most presidents, which when they try to take full credit for the stock market, it's a double-edged sword. The shit moves. I mean, obviously the president can sway, a stock market depending on what they say and do. We've seen evidence of this, but the stock market can ebb and flow in ways that are totally unpredictable. And if you think that you can claim a victory over some positive stock number this week, this month, this quarter, even this year, you're going to be in for a terrible surprise when a bubble bursts or when it tanks because of something totally unrelated. Because now you have to own that too.
I know you have to own it when it tanks too.
Yep.
But it's really hard politically to do the right thing as a president.
Yeah, it really is.
So it's like because look, this country is in terrible debt, and it's terrible spending, and Donald Trump basically ran as really a Democrat. Like, yeah, his rhetoric was. He had a lot of this rhetoric that people equated to like some type of white nationalism, which I don't think most people ever took that seriously, except like the people at MSNBC and CNN. However, I guess you could say, just saying America first was some sort of nationalist, and that was some sort of nationalism. I mean, Trump himself said he was a nationalist.
Yeah.
But as far as like spending and stuff like that, I mean, there's record spending underneath the Trump administration. Like he wasn't some small government conservative, like
Right.
how Ted Cruz, like he wasn't some Tea Party type guy who is protesting about like reckless government spending. So he just. I don't know. I just never really saw his policies as that different from what another Republican, another establishment president would really do, except maybe for foreign policy, which I spent last podcast, um, you know, we spent last podcast going over Joe Biden and Trump's foreign policy agendas and history and plans. And since we spoke about Trump first, I criticized Trump first because we spent more time on that. I criticized him more because we had more time to criticize him. But I actually think that that's the one thing that Trump has. Well, there's a lot of things in my opinion, but I don't want to get too far into my own political biases. But objectively, I think Trump was better than Hillary Clinton on foreign policy, and I think he's most
sure.
But that's that's a really low bar. We're talking about like the most hawkish Democrat.
Right.
Now, I don't know how bad Biden's going to be in foreign policy.
I don't either.
I have doomsday. A lot of doomsdayers are saying like, well, you just guaranteed a war. I don't know. I don't want to go ahead and be like, oh, like Joe Biden's going to become president and he's going to put ground troops in Syria immediately. I don't think that is going to be. I don't see it playing out like that. Like, okay, Joe Biden's president, time to start drone striking. Let's pick a random country on a map and destroy it. I could see them. He's already. Some of his campaign people said they're going to keep troops in Syria. Like they've already committed to keeping troops there. But Trump is already keeping troops there. I don't know if they're going to add a troop presence there or not. But I don't know. I want to see how it plays out. You have to see, and I'm going under the assumption that Biden will win. You have to see who he puts in his cabinet. Most likely, it's going to be blobbish people who are pretty weird. They're probably going to be weirdos. Let's just be real.
Nerdy
it's going to be
wonks. Yeah.
Weird. The weirdos from the Obama presidency, and some will be worse than others. Like Susan Rice is a blood-soaked monster. So I'll see if he puts her around, and like people like Victoria Nuland, and I'm really curious to see who he has. He selects as Secretary of State and Secretary of Defense. Secretary of Defense will most likely just be some pro-Democrat general. But Secretary of State, I mean, who knows who it could be? I could see it being Susan Rice, going with the only picking minorities and women strategy. But I mean, it already served his purpose picking Kamala. I mean, because they already won election, assuming that he did win.
Honestly, I don't know if he's going to stick to like a. I think he'll virtue signal a lot on
identity. He won't do another identity pick.
No, I think the key roles he'll just pick who he believes is the best in his opinion, or who is.
I don't think he believes anything at this point. I think he's just kind of bumbling around and he's like, "Oh, I'm Joe." I think there's a group of people making the decisions for him.
Well, I'd argue the same for Trump, or any president for that matter.
Any president too, but Trump at the very least has an arrogance about him to be like, all right, this isn't getting done right, you're fired. Like he fired John Bolton,
or like he's just not paying attention enough to be told what to do, and that's the way I see it. But either way, it serves the same purpose. So I think, ironically, Trump says a lot about America first, but I think as far as foreign policy goes, I think Biden will kind of adopt an America first policy, because we've read his foreign policy, the majority of the shit in foreign policy is still talking about domestic policy. I think he's gonna be so wrapped up in domestic shit that foreign policy, he'll not be strong on foreign policy, and by default he probably, like you said, he's not going to put troops in fucking Syria because he's not going to be paying attention to Syria.
Yeah. Well, I guess the fears are is how is he going to interact with Russia, and how he's going to interact with with China. What I could see happening is that he'll probably be attacked from the right on China, and what Democrats like to do, or what Democrats typically do when they want to seem strong, is that they'll go way to the right of even Republicans on issues, and I wonder how that translates to China, or maybe all that stuff is true and he's completely compromised by China.
Maybe.
I don't know who. I mean, who knows? I mean, Joe Biden. I don't know if if you elected him or not. Most likely, he wasn't your first choice. I'm assuming for a lot of people, or you weren't thrilled about voting for Joe Biden. The guy is super corrupt. He's enriched his family with his political connections. Now, is he especially uniquely corrupt? I don't know. I think a lot of politicians. Is he uniquely corrupt?
It's not excusing, but
I think you can make a case that he's uniquely corrupt because of the amount of power that he held and the amount of money that his family made with that power. I think you could probably make a case that he is uniquely
he's uniquely corrupt insofar as one can be uniquely corrupt holding that as much power as he did.
Yeah, that's I guess a good way to put it. I guess we'll see. I mean, Republicans will be.
We haven't even finished counting the votes yet, so we don't even know, right? Like that's the thing. We like getting back to that, the real issue at hand, which is we don't even know. And you know, I say let's exercise caution. Every single state, everything that I was watching on election day said, chill out. We're not going to know right now. We're not going to know tomorrow. We're not going to know at all for a couple days, minimum. So chill out. Stop watching the TV for a while. Trust me, when they pick a winner, you will know because everyone's going to, half the country is going to lose their mind, right? So just, I give you permission. Just turn off the news. Stop watching it. You'll find out when it's time. And then at that point, then we can have the real conversations. We can talk about whether or not there was voter fraud, which in my opinion, I think I doubt. But I'm open to looking at it. And if it goes to the courts, then we'll have a different conversation. And we'll see if the courts are, the mostly conservative court will uphold the law based on partisan ideals or, based on what the law dictates. And we can have that conversation. But for now, nothing to see here. Not until they finish counting the votes.
I guess we'll see. But I'm still kind of operating off the assumption that what's next, because I mean I don't have any more insight into what's going to happen, at least with the voting count, other than it's going to probably end with Joe Biden having the electoral votes that he needs. Mm-hmm. If Trump loses this election, I just want to warn you, Trump ain't going away. And I don't mean that he's going to stay in office. I mean, he's still going to be a very important figure in conservative or right-wing politics, in U.S. politics in general.
Like that, right?
Unless Twitter shuts him off. But believe me, there'll be another platform where you'll be able to hear him. Yeah. And if you guys think that right-wing populism is going away,
it's not.
Then you have another thing coming for you right now, because you haven't clearly been paying attention of how close this election was, because this is coming down to a couple tens of thousands of votes in just pretty much,
three states maybe. Yeah.
3 states. So a large part of our country gave that fuck you to the establishment. And was Trump just the biggest fuck you that they could give at the time? If there was a bigger fuck you,
or a better
fuck you, would they have chose that person other than Trump? So my question is, and this is what I've really been thinking about, is that who is going to adopt or be the heir of the right-wing populist movement in the U.S. over the next 4 years? Who is going to be the successor of the movement that Trump really built, honestly? There was the Tea Party before, but really not the same things as far as like
Nope.
right wingers protesting and getting involved. But Tea Party, at least at the beginning, they're about, that's Ted Cruz and Rand Paul and Mike Lee and Thomas Massey and like those guys who
Tea Party's a joke compared to the Trump train right now.
the Trump train really got people excited.
Yep.
It really got people, into politics, like into like culture wars and stuff like that. Who are the Republicans who adopt that? Like, can that even be another Republican politician? Because a lot of Republican politicians are just kind of squibs. Like they're just like, oh yeah,
No,
well,
it's going to be another Trump.
is it going to
It's going
be?
to be Donnie Jr.
I don't know if
or
it's going to be
Ivanka.
Donnie Jr.
Yeah, no,
I don't.
I
It's
think
not
it
going to
might
be
be.
Ivanka, man.
I think it might be.
I don't think it's going to be Donnie Jr. So,
What's
politician-wise,
the eye patch guy? Dan something? Dan
Crenshaw.
He's close.
So Crenshaw is definitely like a Trump ally. You can tell that the people who are Trump allies by, if you go to the Republican congressmen who are talking about defending Trump about like possible voter fraud, and the ones that are keeping silent are the ones that are like, I need to stay close to Trump and make sure I'm in good terms with him because I want to stay on his, I want to be in touch in a favorable side of his base over the next 4 years, because Republicans who turn on Trump,
they don't do very well.
They're not gonna do well in 2 years. Like I don't think a lot of Republicans want to take that risk. So I think they're kind of playing their hands. Like, how far can I go? Like, I want to back him, but I also don't want to he may not be president anymore. So what do I do? I think a lot of Republicans are going to be kind of forced into, at the very least, giving lip service to the MAGA movement. And I'm trying to think of who are going to be the Republicans because there's going to be a big line of people who are going to want to run for president. Like, people are going to see Biden is very vulnerable in 4 years. Like, look at the guy. He's 78 years old, clearly not in the greatest mental capacity. He is a very, very unlikable vice president. Like, how...
Well, I mean,
Republicans
you pointed out earlier.
Look how many Democrats ran for president. Like,
Yeah.
You had to have two ridiculous debates. It was like a Super Smash Brothers roster. Like,
I love it.
A new oncomer came every single day. Like, oh, John Hickenlooper. No, now we have Eric Swalwell. Now we have like just all this, just so many. And by the way, how much money did a Democrat spend in all of these to unseat guys like Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham?
Well, Lindsey Graham was like hundreds of millions.
$100 million to unseat Lindsey Graham. What? And they lost.
Well, I mean, it's it's a deep red state, dude. That was a long shot from the fucking beginning.
Are they doing this? Are they doing this just to show that they have unlimited amounts of cash? I think it's just power plays. They're just like, hey, like,
no.
Fuck?
No. I honestly think that they tried to unseat him, and they knew that the only way to do it was to throw a shit ton of money at him. Like, specifically around Mitch McConnell, like, there's a very strong interest in removing him, from power.
Oh, you can't out-Mitch the Mitch, man. I know a lot of people dislike Mitch, but I definitely have some kind of respect for Mitch McConnell. He is one of the most skilled political operatives that we've seen in our lifetime.
Yeah, but like for that reason, he's got a fucking target on his back, and so that's why I think that there was a legitimate interest on the Democratic side to get rid of him, and that's why they put a fuck ton of money in it, And then with Lindsey Graham, he's not necessarily like this. I think he's just a hated figure among the left anyway, in general.
He's not even very popular on the right, but
no, he's not.
You know what happened? When John McCain died, Lindsey Graham got a lot better on a lot of different issues.
Why? I wonder.
They were really close, him and John McCain. I think John McCain had a lot of power over Lindsey Graham, and once John McCain died, he was like, I'm free to think for myself. John
I could
won't show
go
the
out.
video. John won't show those videos of me with with that Filipino boy. Like, um, because the rumor is that I think everyone knows the rumor is right now that Lindsey Graham is
Closet.
in the closet,
Right.
and people have compromised materials on him.
Hmm.
And that's been a rumor. Like Justin Raimondo come out would say that all the time.
Right.
And Justin Raimondo is gay. Um, so it's interesting.
I mean, like I think you said it in our Patreon chat that like you're glad that Lindsey Graham didn't lose because of the comedic gold, and I think I'm kind of there with you. But
Yeah.
The Mitch McConnell one, man, I actually watched the last debate between him and McGrath, and it was fucking cringeworthy. The responses that he was giving, you know, and maybe I'm just hyper liberal, you know, and those responses were adequate for those folks on the right, but just some he was straight up laughing at McGrath when she was pointing out how so many people are dying from opioids in their state, and he's just straight up laughing at her.
Well, I haven't seen the debate,
You should
but
watch
I
it.
mean,
It's cringy.
good
It's cringy.
good luck getting a Democrat in Kentucky. That is
Exactly, but that's kind of the point.
one of the
There was-
reddest states in the country.
there was no way that was going to flip. You know, it was cute. It was a cute attempt. And
But I've been here, but some of my more conservative friends are saying that this is all this big money because the Democrats, it seems like they have an unlimited printing press right now when it comes to these campaigns. Like they just spend fucking big money. Like they are getting these big anonymous donors in these weird websites. So what was a big campaign site for Joe Biden? It was like
Pornhub.
there's a what's that? Not Pornhub. Joe Biden has been getting so much money from Wall Street and so much money from like anonymous billionaires that we don't know who they are.
Sure, and honestly, I've been a big proponent of campaign finance reform for a long time, even though I know that benefits the right as much as it does the left, or the left as much as it does the right. Let's stop the money.
Right now, Democrats are getting a lot more finance than Republicans, man.
Sure, I still hold fast. We have to get money out of
Yeah.
politics. I don't care. One election cycle ago it was the other way around, but I don't care. Get rid of the money.
Like I agree. Well, Biden. So right now, Biden outspent Trump 2-1 on this presidential campaign,
And all he got was 50%.
Yeah, and it's just great. Like, all right, so over the past few years, the money that's been going into like the Senate to knock off Republican senators has been crazy, man. Just the money that went into Beto O'Rourke and the money that went into it's just fucking crazy. Like, who was the senator in Georgia? Or was it the governor of Georgia?
Stacey Abrams?
Not Stacey. Yeah, Stacey Abrams is another one. A lot of money went into that one, but she was running for governor. I'm thinking of, man, it seems like so long ago, but there was a senator running in Georgia during the midterms. I have to look this up because it's already escaping me, but they're just putting boatloads of cash, and it's really interesting. And so, like, sometimes I think myself that these shots are just like power moves. Like they're just like, we can take you out anytime. We just have a limited money, so we're going to be going after your
Scared the
seats.
shit out of Lindsey Graham because he was on Fox News begging people for money.
Oh yeah, Lindsey Graham had a campaign a lot harder than he thought he was.
Right. And sometimes that's the play too. It's like by focusing on these hard hard Republican leaning states and putting all that money into it, what happens is now the RNC has to counter it, and they're like, oh well, shit, we can't lose a solidly red state, so we have to now focus here.
And Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham are so wrapped up by the MIC itself. You know what I mean? Like they're such like military industrial complex Republican types that like are, you would think they would have donors like that, but I mean, Democrats, I guess their competition are pretty in bed with those same military contractors as well. Um, so yeah, but the point I kind of lost the point I was trying to make. Who is the Republican who takes this movement from Trump and turns it into a because Trumpism is not going away, man. Like, is it Dan Crenshaw? Like, that's a lot of people. I've said it myself. Dan Crenshaw. I think he's still too establishment-y, though. In my heart,
I
he's
think
still
that's
too.
probably more palatable for a larger swath of people. I think they made their point with Trump, and they stuck up the middle
I think
finger.
this is only going to get worse, man.
I think it's gonna get worse. I don't know. I don't think
I
so.
think it's going to get worse after the election because no matter what, if Trump loses, no matter what the outcome is in the election, if Trump loses, whether there's voter fraud or not voter fraud, the narrative is going to be voter fraud. People are going to feel like they've been fucked over. People are going to feel like the media ran. I mean, I still feel like I definitely agree on the side of the narrative of Trump, where he's been treated so unfairly by the media that it was ridiculous in many regards, as far as Russiagate, as far as just criticizing everything he did. Like what? I think that base is going to be more pissed off, and they're going to be more likely to vote a real badass or get behind a real like a scarier badass, not just the middle finger.
Here's why I disagree with you, Joe Biden. Because you would think that all of the you think that the pissed off Hillary people, or even better, the really pissed off Bernie crowd, the Democratic Socialist crowd, like the antithesis of the Trump train, basically. You would think that they would have been pissed off enough to elect Bernie Sanders or nominate Bernie Sanders instead of Joe Biden. But Joe Biden won, and he won pretty fairly this time around too. Not.
This time Bernie
about,
lost on his own,
right.
But last
Bernie
time he was cheated.
Fair and square this time. He was cheated the first time, but he legitimately lost this time. I don't think so. I don't think it radicalizes people more to pick a more radical person.
But this Trump movement, this right-wing populist movement, is different than the left-wing populist movement. It encompassed the party. Like the Republican Party is the party of Trump now. So the Lincoln Project, they had this ad like, now that we've defeated Trump, now we're going to work on creating the new Republican Party, like a new Republican Party with integrity. And everyone's just like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, we hate you. Like, we hate the Bush era Republicans. Like, Republicans now, like the new Republican Party, despises any type of Bush-like figure or any type of establishment-like figure. Yeah, some of them are still around because they've cozied up to Trump because they saw where the power was swinging, but there's no room for Jeb Bush anymore. There's no room for someone even like Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley.
I mean, do you think that there's some truth to the idea of a loud vocal minority, and that maybe what you see as the large and powerful Trump train is actually just a loud but small minority in the party?
So most people are not super in your face about their political views, and most people who voted for Trump obviously aren't people who were going to Trump rallies and have like a huge Trump flag and who are drinking beer and driving trucks and are like, woo, America first. Mm-hmm. Most Trump supporters aren't like that, though they're the loudest supporters, but they definitely I think most of them feel the same way. Because I 100% relate to a lot of Trump supporters on what their grievances are. I understand their grievances on big tech. I understand their grievances on bailouts. I understand their grievances on the unfair treatment from the corporate press. I understand their grievances about constantly being called a racist when you're not a racist. Like the woke culture is what I think a lot of people got behind Trump with, because people really despise. Like I myself, I fucking hate woke culture or SJW culture. I don't really talk about it on this podcast that much because we talk about so many other things and so many other people talk about woke culture, but I fucking hate that shit. And that funny, and for Republicans because they don't adopt that kind of woke rhetoric. So a lot of people in America fucking just join that train for that issue. They also see that a lot of Republicans, a lot of people I know who voted for Trump this year, who didn't vote for him last election, voted for them because they see that the Democrats went way too far left. Like that was their reasoning for me. They're like, hey, I just think the Democrats just went way too far left. They totally left like what they used to be about. So now I'm voting Republican because they're just too crazy. At least they like America. So I think those types of people are voting Republican now. But I'm still trying to look at like the overall kind of Trump base and who would rally that support. Like, because what Trump, you have to understand the gifts that he gave us, that he went and he destroyed 2 political dynasties in one election cycle. He destroyed the Bush family and he destroyed the Clintons. Like, that is a fucking major accomplishment. Who can take that momentum and run with it? Because it's going to be another election in 4 years, and
maybe nobody.
We're looking at a vulnerable candidate. It's not like Barack Obama, who was super popular and people were excited about. Like everyone just like, all right, we got this old piece of shit, old corrupt piece of shit.
Maybe nobody can take up the Trump mantle.
That's what I was thinking.
But
then I thought, there's one person who can take the Trump mantle.
Trump?
Not Trump. It's not Eric. It's the second most important right-wing populist in the country.
Ben Shapiro?
Ben Shapiro's not a right-wing populist. He's
I don't know. I'm just throwing.
He's a mainstream conservative.
Well, give it to me.
Tucker Carlson.
Okay.
He is the second most important right-wing populist in the country. And I was thinking, can he take this movement? Or is it going to be somebody like other people I've had in my head? Like, is it someone like maybe Michael Flynn? I don't know what Michael Flynn's like real policies on domestic politics is, but I imagine he can be this kind of
Michael
victim
Flynn's too
of the
fucking
Trump.
Milk toast to take up the Trump mantle.
He's not milk toast. Michael Flynn's a fucking nut, and he's outspoken and he's kind of a jerk. But that makes me think, like, I think it needs to be kind of an alpha dude, like someone who's not going to give a fuck and say whatever.
Like, you might be pissed, like, think that the fucking woke culture sucks, dude. I fucking hate alpha jerk dicks that take, like, strongmen. I just don't like them. I don't think you need to like yap like a fucking chihuahua.
Did you think Trump was like that or no?
I did.
You did?
Yeah, I did. I think it's like all talk, no fucking action. Like it's just like playing at machismo.
Yeah.
You know, like I hate that shit. It doesn't. You're not a man if you do that, in my opinion.
Well, that's what people are looking. I think that's what people are going to be looking for in the next Republican primary. They're gonna want to elect some. Their chimp brains are going to be thinking, and they're going to be like, I want the fucking guy who's going to just call everyone out and call out like the media and big tech and be on my side with it and take my side with a lot of the grievances I have about the way that society is shifting. And I think that I'm not saying Michael Flynn's actually a viable candidate, but I mean, I'm just saying that because he was part of the movement, and then he was somebody who was really a victim of just being part of his cabinet unfairly. Like he was unfairly set up by the FBI, and he was unfairly put in jail.
Or he committed a crime. Either way.
No, he didn't commit a crime. What the fuck are you talking, dude? I will go. I will.
This is a trigger. I'm just triggering you, dude. Just chill.
Yeah, that's my trigger. That's a trigger point. So could it be him? Could it be? Now here's a scary one. Tom Cotton.
Tom Cotton, I guess. Maybe.
Tom Cotton is kind of a fucking nut job. And let's just say he was the one who was calling for there to be a National Guard presence during the DC riots and their law and order.
Why can't there just be like a very strong right wing person that's not a dick? Why can't you just pick one of those people? Like I don't think it works in this political climate right now. Right now I think people want somebody who is they see is going to go to battle for them. Like that's what they want. Just because you go to battle for someone doesn't mean you have to be a dick. That's what I'm trying to say. Like you can stand up for those principles without being a dick. Find Republicans. I give you a task. If Trump loses, find somebody like that for me to consider voting for. I don't think I will, but try me. I'll entertain it.
It's gonna be. I have my preferences of where I want the Republican Party to go. I want them to get a somebody who's like an old school Barry Goldwater type Rand Paul saying, we need to stop our reckless deficit spending and start dismantling our empire type guy. But let's just be real. Like those guys, like I don't want to play myself. Like I can wish for that. I can wish for a libertarian Republican to gain popularity within the Republican Party, but they're not going to get the donorship that's required to move far. And none of them are billionaires. There's no billionaires donating to libertarians, unfortunately.
Unless we move forward on campaign finance reform. And I think honestly, people on the right that feel the way that you do about that, you have allies on the right, on the left. There's a lot of people, left, right, and center, who is very, very interested in getting rid of money in politics, and that'll open up the possibility for those people with actual, real ideas that could be constructive on both the left and the right to actually come to power. Because right now, the only people that you're going to ever see on a ballot are the people who are approved by the interests. That's it.
That is true. And listen, man, we both come from different sides, but I think we can both empathize with each other when it comes to having like candidates we liked having really been treated unfairly, as far as you with Bernie Sanders and me with Ron Paul. Like we both know that candidates that we liked more were treated unfairly because of their principled positions that they had. Mm-hmm. So
let's we're coming to an hour and a half here, and we do have a really interesting mailbag, and I'd like to get to that. And I did a little bit of research on it too. So do you want to do that and then wrap?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. All right, I'll read it this time. So I'm going to ask you the question, Henry, because I'm interested in what you have to say. So we got this question from Matt here, one of our Patreon subscribers, and he says, taking hypotheticals to the extreme, let's assume the SDNY, the Southern District of New York, seeks charges against Trump. By the way, this is assuming a Biden win. So SDNY seeks charges against Trump, and Trump flees the U.S. to avoid persecution or prosecution, or both. Can Trump find somewhere to hide that won't extradite him? What would the geopolitical ramifications of said country from harboring him, and who would be the most likely / willing country to do so? What do you think, Henry?
So there's a lawsuit against Biden the federal government. There's a federal government. To put it in context, though, there's a federal there's a lawsuit against the federal government on regards to coronavirus deaths. I'm not exactly sure what the case is, though, right? But that's what Matt's talking about, right?
I don't know.
Isn't there a lawsuit?
I don't know if he's specifically referring to anything. He is talking about the SDNY seeking charges, which would be the Southern District of New York, and that would be like charges for like financial crimes that he has done.
Oh, it's financial.
So, like,
I thought it was something
campaign
to do with
finance.
coronavirus.
But let's broaden this a bit, and just for fun here, let's not focus so much on why he was being prosecuted. Let's just say that he is being prosecuted, right? Pick your poison. He's going to be prosecuted. It can end him up in jail. Now Trump thinks, I got to leave the country. Where does he go? And is there somewhere he can go? And what country is that? And what are the geopolitical, implications of that? What do you think?
I mean, well, I guess you'd have to look at what countries that we have extradition treaties with. Well, I guess he could go to list of extradition treaties. So it's a big list of that.
So you don't want to look at the ones that, because I did this research. You don't want to look at countries with extradition treaties. You want to look at them without it. So here, I have it up on the screen.
I'm looking at them with, and I'm kind of just double checking to see if they're not on the list. But
here,
I guess Russia would be on the list.
Yeah, Russia. You could go to Russia.
I mean, Russia has Edward Snowden there.
That's true.
And maybe Trump could go there. I'm sure that he would enjoy a nice lifestyle there, and look at judge a lot of Russian beauty pageants there. So he could probably continue his standard of living there. I think someone said Israel. I think Israel we do have extradition treaties with.
We absolutely have an extradition treaty with Israel. I don't even think that's possible. No.
I don't think you would be going there, and they're gonna not. The Netanyahu's already kind of cozying up to Biden. Like they don't have loyalty outside of the
Israel
power.
Doesn't care what president it is. It's just like, how can they influence them? Right? They don't care.
I guess it'd be Russia, but like I don't know. I guess it depends on how serious of the charges. How serious? Let's just say if he was like a spy or something, or then
or like what if it turns out that like the collusion thing is obviously not been proven, but let's just say for fun that it's a hung court and they're just gonna charge him with collusion, like fucking whatever. And it's like really bad.
What they're gonna and then the punishment would be what, treason?
Yep, treason.
You
either life in prison or
death
even
penalty.
Death. Yeah.
Death penalty.
Yeah.
So like hard treason.
Yeah,
okay, let's
treason,
assume
treason. Hard T.
So I guess they would send. I guess the only places he could go would be a place like Russia, and the geopolitical consequences of him not being given up, I guess, would just be sanctions. I don't think that the U.S. would go to war over to get a criminal. I mean, there's plenty of U.S. criminals who fled the country, but I guess we're talking about one who's done harm to, assuming that he did actual harm to the United States. But no, I don't think the geopolitical consequences would be severe. It would just be like sanctions. They're not going to go to war over a financial criminal or something like Russiagate. Like the U.S. doesn't prosecute its real big financial crime criminals or political, the people who engage in political crimes. Mm-hmm. They don't really even go after them. Like you don't get in trouble for being
too busy locking people
up financial like a big time criminal in the U.S. unless you're like somebody like Mark Rich, who ends up on the Interlobe's most wanted list,
right?
Who's just doing crazy, shady fuckery everywhere. Or even Jeffrey Epstein didn't really get in trouble until, I mean, he
got in trouble and then he got let off, and then he got the easiest fucking prison sentence ever, where he can go home every day.
This guy was a known sex trafficker, and
they were like, yeah, sure, you can go home every single day.
Excuse me. he was a known sex trafficker slash intelligence operative of
Mm-hmm.
a foreign nation,
Mm-hmm.
and he didn't. I don't know if we want to get into this, but and he wasn't touched.
He didn't kill himself.
So I don't know. I think it would just be sanctions, and it wouldn't really be that big of a deal, a geopolitical consequence. I don't know. What do you think?
I agree. I looked up the countries that have no extradition treaties with the U.S., and honestly, he doesn't have a whole lot of great options. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure he's referred to many of these countries that he could go to as shithole countries. So, the likelihood is that they won't, they won't take him. But I think the ones that stick out the most for me are obviously Russia, but maybe even Ukraine. I feel like he can probably get away with being in Ukraine. He can probably.
He couldn't go to Ukraine.
He can. I think he might be able to. He could probably go to the UAE.
There's too much U.S. influence in Ukraine.
Maybe he can probably go
With
to the UAE.
Joe Biden as president, Joe Biden will be like, listen. Remember when that prosecutor was investigating my son Hunter? Well,
All right, we want Trump back.
and I fired that. Remember when I made you guys fire that prosecutor who was going after my son, who was getting paid that energy salary? Or, so I think that I mean
UAE or Saudi Arabia also jumps out at me, but like,
I mean he's not gonna go to fucking Saudi Arabia, the UAE.
I mean, he wouldn't want to, right? Like, he wouldn't enjoy living there, but I think he could potentially go there. I think they would accept him.
It's too hot here.
Why is everybody wearing robes?
It.
I don't want to wear that stupid thing on my head.
Yeah, I think Russia would be the only option. But yeah, I don't think that's. I know you're playing hypotheticals to the extreme, so I don't think that would be
He can go to the Vatican.
likely.
The Vatican has
I'm wondering if
extradition.
he'll be. I'm wondering if Trump is embraced by the media after this. Like, hey, like I know we put you through hell, but now you're one of us. Like, come on our talk shows and tell your story. Like, I wonder what happens there.
I think there might be a case for that because he would give them great ratings, so they might treat him nicely afterwards.
Well, a lot of these resistance liberals who made a career off things like Russiagate and like all these fucking crazy conspiracies, they are not going to have anything to write about anymore. Like, there's these people who made these careers just writing about Donald Trump 24/7, like Orange Man bad. Oh, Donald Trump is destroying our democracy. Oh, he colluded with Russia. Resistance. Like all these losers on Twitter who do just like unfollow tactics for other people. So they just follow people and they try to accumulate as many followers as possible, and they just share propaganda, like just DNC topic propaganda stuff, and then they sell these shitty books that appeal to them. So there's like that industry that was created, and then all these people who just made all these neoconservatives who jumped on like the anti-Trump bandwagon and just started writing they pretty much used the Trump pretext to justify a aggressive policy towards Russia because Vladimir Putin threw out their boys who were oligarchs there in that country. Like, a lot of that shit went on, but most of all, it's going to be like MSNBC and CNN. Like, they just made a 4-year killing on the Trump industry.
Most profits ever. Yeah.
What are they going to do without him? Like, are they going to shift? Glenn Greenwald said this on Joe Rogan, and I think he's right about this, that
I remember
they're going to shift the narrative from Trump is bad to now the rising tide of right-wing nationalism. And they may even be right, because the Trump base may be so pissed off that there is a rising right-wing nationalism. That could even be a case for that. Like,
it's an option.
If the vote is seen as illegitimate and Trump loses office, and a lot of his support loves him, or at least they see him as highly preferable to the corporate establishment.
He's not going to go quietly.
He's not going to go quietly. If they feel that pissed off about it, like they can't even change things with a vote, and that the election process is a fraud, hey man, you might see something scarier than what you were talking about before. And a lot of these things a lot of these movements become self-fulfilling prophecies.
Yeah.
So I would watch out because
The crazy thing is,
populist right-wing movement is hell of a lot scarier than a populist, at least in this country, a populist right-wing movement would have a lot more powerful of a punch than a bunch of cosmopolitan, latte drinking liberals.
yeah, no, I agree with that. And you know what the crazy part is that all it has to be is a perceived um, issue. Like it doesn't even have to be a legitimate issue with the veracity of our voting system, right? Like the voting system could be completely legit, and as long as they perceive that they were wronged, with or without evidence to the contrary, it could pop off in that way.
And dude, I think if you look at the FBI, man, I think the FBI is really positioning themselves to use the different groups of what they all kind of group together as right wing terrorism, which I think they falsely do it, or incorrectly do it, but they just lump in everyone who's from libertarian to
Everyone right of
militia,
center.
anarchist to like Nazis. Like they group Nazis.
Every
in,
nut
like
right of center.
they group Nazis and like libertarian militia guys who are completely different ideologies together. They're gonna group all of them together, and then they have fucking feds in all those groups. I bet you there's more feds in these militias, and there's more feds that are Nazis in this country right now than there's actually real life Nazis or militias. And they're gonna have these stupid busts. They're gonna talk these idiots into like, hey, let's go plan an attack on Kamala Harris's convoy. Oh, okay, hey, 1776 will rise again. Oh, and then they'll arrest the guy. And then they'll be like, look, we just saved the vice president's life. We provoked the attack. We're the one who gave them the blueprint of how to actually,
We
find the
radicalized them.
caravan. But we saved them at the same time. I think that shit's going to really happen over the next 4 years. But I think the grievances and a lot of the right-wing populism ain't going nowhere. And I'm curious to see what direction it all takes.
Same here.
And I'm curious to see how the corporate press covers it and what they use as their new boogeyman, because they need a new boogeyman. Like, what the hell? What else are they going to talk about, man? Like a Biden presidency? They're not going to go.
Trump's
Like, are
still
they
gonna
going to turn on
tweet.
Biden? There's a chance that they could turn on Biden. Imagine if the corporate press turned on Biden.
That could be interesting.
They're like, hey, man, we need something
He's
good.
creepy.
He's
He
foreign.
touches people. He's going dementia. Like he starts hearing that shit on CNN or some shit.
Before
interesting.
he was the selected candidate to run against Trump, when there was other players in the mix, they were going after him. They were talking about covering the Tara Reid allegations. Like the Tara Reid stuff ended up not likely being credible. However, if they were covering it, if the Tara Reid stuff came out when he was the Democratic nominee, that shit wouldn't have been covered at all. Now it is going to be interesting to see if the media treats him with complete kid gloves, or hey, maybe the corporate press will actually turn on Joe Biden. I think that's a possibility too, especially if we're in a humongous recession and people need a scapegoat. Because I mean, come on, man. Come on, man.
Man.
He'll be an easy target.
Come on.
He'll be an incredibly easy target to air grievances on. Come on, man. Like, the guy
The more you,
is-
Joe.
He's kind of like when Buchanan said that Abraham Lincoln. Good luck, man. Um, I don't think Trump is leaving willingly and saying good luck, but
the sentiment will be there.
it's like you're
Good luck
walking
to
into
anyone.
you're
God bless
walking
anyone
you're
who
walking
takes
into
this.
a really shitty time to become
Yeah.
president, Joe
Yeah.
Biden.
Good luck to any of them, whether it's Trump or Biden. We've got an
Yeah,
interesting
well,
4 years ahead of us.
and I guess let's wrap this thing up.
Cool. All right.
All right. Well, thanks guys for listening to another episode of Bro History. Always appreciate you giving us the time of the day. Make sure that you rate and review the podcast. That is the number one way to help us grow. If you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And also we have a Patreon. Patreon, if you join our Patreon, we give you access to our Skype group where we talk and communicate and shoot the shit, and it's a lot of fun. So there's also extra content on our Patreon as well. So join that. But really always appreciate that you joining us, and hopefully you guys don't mind us concentrating on the election over the past couple of weeks. But honestly, it's been pretty hard to concentrate to put our attention to other topics just because it's the news is so overwhelming. But I promise we're going to be getting back to the the history and more foreign policy content soon. Anything else, Danny?
Nope. Peace.
All right. Peace, guys.